Welcome to New Hampshire Politics with John Burt. I'm John Burt. I want to thank you for joining us today, and today I just can't tell you how excited I am for having her back. She's been here once before, and well, matter of fact, I think twice, if I remember right. Yeah, and you're really going to enjoy this talk that we're going to have. And who I have here is Karen Testerman, and she's running for the U.S. Senate.
Yes.
Yeah, that's got to be real exciting.
It is exciting. It's a venture that I did never dream that I would be embarking on, but here I am.
Well, well, no, thank you very much for coming on,
thank
Karen.
you, John.
And you know, I've always enjoyed having you on. And you're a very smart lady, and you know, just I love your political views. I mean, you really have it put together.
Well, thank you.
You know,
Thank you.
I think you'd serve us extremely well, you know, down in Washington.
Well, you know, I operate by a set of principles
Yeah.
and values, and I really think that if we tell people where we stand and explain to them where we are and listen to them when they disagree with us, that there are a lot of places that we can go and differences that we can make, but people want to hear where is it that you're going to stand. And whether I agree with you or not, I may disagree with you on an issue or what's going to happen, but if I know what you are telling me is where you're going to be, then I feel very confident about that. And if I know that I can come and present my point of view to you and you'll at least listen and consider it, then I feel pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing I like about you, Karen, is the biggest thing is I think if you got down there and even drank some of the water down there.
Oh, I hope I don't drink too much of it.
I don't think you would change because why is it, regardless of what part of the country, they go down there and they just seem to fall into that pit.
You know, it's a frustration. I think that it's a big world down there that you just don't anticipate. And one of the things that I think is very important is to look at where is it you're going to go. And think about it. You know, when we've got a teenager at home and they're just now learning to drive, one of the things we try to do with them is say, okay, what happens if you have someone here that's getting ready to walk across the street? You can see him. Can you stop? And what do you stop or do you keep going? And in New Hampshire, you better know
Yes.
that when that pedestrian's starting across that street, you better stop your car.
Yep.
Because that's the law.
Yeah.
So the same thing is when you go and embark on any new territory, you have to sort of anticipate what's going to happen if. So what's going to happen if the speaker comes to you and says, Karen, I'd like to put you on this committee, but if you do that, I want you to sign on to this bill, and this bill.
Oh, yeah.
You know, a little bartering goes on, and I know it goes on, but if it's something that's very fundamental to my principles, I'm not going to, you know, so, okay, I don't need that committee maybe. Or,
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
maybe I'm going to get an office at the very bottom of the Capitol. Okay, you know, everybody starts at the bottom sometime and then they end up going up. So I guess that's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. But on certain principles, I will not bend. And life is one of them. The makeup of the family is another. The other thing for people to consider is exactly what kind of bills are you going to get and laws are you going to make that are really going to impact me.
Yes.
And having those basic fundamental principles underlying what you do might tell me how you might vote on various issues, but it also tells me where you won't bend, you know. And there's this thing called the Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little dusty.
It's a little dusty, and we're having some problems with it, but
Yeah.
understanding that first set of rights, you know, the speech, religion, assembly,
Yeah.
you know, petition, those first 4 or 5 things are protected by our Second Amendment right.
That's right.
It's not so we can go hunting, or it's not just so we can defend our home. It's also so we can protect ourselves against our government.
That's right.
So,
Yeah. No,
So-
I'm a firm believer in that. I was just up to the State House fighting on on what is it, Senate Bill 244, I think it is.
Right.
And, they're trying to bring in new gun registration laws, and I'm fighting it.
Oh yeah, because if we go back in history in other countries and find out what happened there
Yes.
when the registration of firearms occurred, then we can sort of say, well, this is what human nature will do with that much power.
Yeah.
And do we want this country that was founded on all men being created equal, is that really where we want to go? Do we want to still hold on to our ability to make our own decisions? Or do we want the government to constantly tell us what kind of light bulb we can buy?
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Oh, we could talk a half hour just on that one. Yeah, that's, because I guess the incandescent, they're gone.
They're gone, yeah.
Yeah.
I bought the last package at the grocery store the other day.
Did you?
It was on the shelf. I mean, the shelf was totally empty except for one package. And I said, 40-watt bulbs, I'm buying them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I was wondering too is, what how did you become involved in the public square?
Well,
What brought you out?
it's really fascinating because I grew up in California. My grandparents were immigrants to this country.
Yeah.
They came because they wanted to fulfill their dream, and they raised us to be Americans, to love America, to be contributing, not ever to be ashamed of what we believed in, and to stand strong. So when my husband served in the Air Force, and our children did as well, but when he retired, we said, okay, got this great big country that we can go live any place in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, any place in the country that we wanted to go to. And we had lived in the New England area in upstate New York and decided, you know what? We like the New England area, so we're headed that direction. We took all of the states and we compared the pluses and minuses, and we ended up in New Hampshire. So we chose to come to New Hampshire because of who New Hampshire was. Well, little did I know that when I went to my very first gun owners banquet, there was two senators, 2 U.S. senators, and a congressman, and I didn't pay for the ticket. And I'm going, holy smokes, you can actually go talk to our elected representatives. This is really neat.
You don't in California.
No, not in California or any other state for that matter. And so then I got involved with my child's schooling and got introduced to Goals 2000.
Yeah.
And got together with some other concerned citizens about, is this the right thing? Much the way people are doing with Common Core today.
Yes.
And we were successful in convincing the State Board of Education that we should not be a state that signs on to Goals 2000. We were the only state in the union to do so.
Wow,
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. And then we were talking back and forth with some of the attorneys who were supposed to be constitutional attorneys, and we found out, gee, some of them don't even have to take a Constitution class. And what's wrong with this? And why isn't the average person well versed in the Constitution? That was what was so wonderful as far as de Tocqueville was concerned. The average man on the street could talk to you about why their government operated the way they did, and that we were lacking that. So I got together with some other concerned citizens, and we founded the National Heritage Center for Constitutional Studies that is in Epping, New Hampshire. Yeah.
So that's where it founded.
That's where it founded. And then a little bit later, I realized that what was going on up at the State House was impacting my family and the other families around. And I had heard about these family policy councils. So the model that I liked was all of the money that you raised and all of the things that you did with that family policy council stayed in New Hampshire. And you networked with other state organizations that did the same thing, and you could share information and research and that sort of thing.
Yes.
But it all stayed, what you raised in your state stayed in your state, and you
Wow,
were an independent
That's good.
organization. So that's why I founded Cornerstone Policy Research and was the executive director for a while.
Yeah.
And then when I stepped down from there, eventually it led to my running for governor in 2010.
Yeah.
And so here we are today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and why are you running for the U.S. Senate? What do you think you can bring, hopefully to, make the country better?
Right. Well, when I look at my country right now, I think we're really on this deciding line. Are we going one way or are we going the other? And the big question is what do we think the proper role of government should be? Is it to listen to we the people and do what we the people desire for the greater good, or is it to allow an elite ruling class to tell us what we did? Well, we left
Yes.
England because we didn't want somebody else telling us, making those everyday decisions for us and taxing us without our voice being heard. And so I think it's important that we have somebody go down to Washington who believes that government is controlled by what is lined out in the Constitution of the United States. And so I'm here to defend it and to uphold it.
Well, good. That's exactly what we need. I hope, the viewers hear that, because they do. They need to hear it.
Right. Well, otherwise they tell us everything we need to do. I mean, look at all of the departments that are outside of what the enumerated powers are of the according to the Constitution, and we've got them telling us where we can put the water hole on our property, where we can, whether or not we can have a Bible study in our homes, and different things like that that government should never be telling us. We are supposed to be free citizens, and we are supposed to be operating by principle and not by somebody's power over us to tell us what to do.
And I mean, every election, everybody always says how this is the most important one. And I think 12 was an important one. Unfortunately, it didn't go, the right way.
Right.
So that is what is putting a lot of pressure on 14.
Right.
And I think 14 is going to set up 16.
Well, exactly. But 14 is really about, look at what Obamacare is doing to us right now.
Yeah.
I mean, telling not only the citizen what they're supposed to do, telling business what they're supposed to do, telling them what, not how much we're supposed to pay and who's supposed to pay for what, and not all the rules are even being written yet, and so it's really a very frightening position for us to decide: are we going to be people who live by the liberties and live by a limited government, or are we going to be allowing rules and regulations to continue to control us?
Yeah. Well, I know Jean Shaheen, who you're going to be running against.
Yes.
Her and, I believe Custer, went and saw Obama with 17, 18 other senators and congressmen to postpone Obamacare.
Well, that's because I think they were a little concerned that maybe they might become vulnerable if it goes through and it crashes and burns like it is.
Well, that's what my question was. Why do you think it's going to cost a tremendous amount of money, and people are going to lose their jobs over this.
They are losing.
14.
Oh, the thing is that right now we were supposed to bring 20,000 people who were uninsured onto health care,
Yes.
right? Meanwhile, we've had 22 to 24,000 that I know of who have been told that they can't have their health care, and we don't have as many sign-ups as we're supposed to have.
And this is regular people that had good health
Absolutely,
insurance,
yes.
paying for it,
Right.
and they're being dropped.
And they're being dropped, or they're being told, you can have your coverage. Here we go. You can have your insurance company if you want it. Lie number one. But you can have your insurance company if you pay twice as much for your insurance coverage, because, of course, the insurance company is looking at this and saying, it's not a workable plan, and you're asking me to provide coverage to people who don't need the coverage, so it gets more expensive for them to carry it. So obviously their rates are going to go up. The other thing you see is people are losing jobs.
Yes.
Because we have, if you have part-time employees, you don't have to comply with this part of it, versus if you have full-time employees.
Yep.
So now the full-time employees that were working for some of these companies are now 29-hour employees.
Wow.
And the frustrating thing, I think, and for our listeners and our viewing audience, is that the person who was behind the fact that New Hampshire has a limited number of insurers in the first place
Yes, we should open that.
is Jean Shaheen. Yeah. It was
Really?
during her time that she introduced a Senate bill while she was a state senator that favored Blue Cross Blue Shield, and that's why when you get down to all of the sifting and so forth that happens, that we only have one company that is providing insurance. Now there's a couple of companies that are sitting in the wings waiting to see is it successful or not, and if it's successful then they'll jump on and they'll also start insuring. But right now we only have one choice, one, if you're uninsured.
So why would she not want competition in a capitalist society?
I keep saying, you know, this is a woman who is really a, do we call her a puppet or do we call her a shadow of Obama? I mean, she was the one who, or one of the 60 who voted for Obamacare and was willing to let us, let that go through without knowing what was in it.
Yeah.
Followed right along with, well, you need to pass it so you know what's in it.
Yeah, with Pelosi. Yeah.
Right, but we still don't know what's in it because it's still being written. Even today as it's being rolled out and so forth, we still don't know what's in it.
Yes, yeah. And so with the health care, the inevitable is the inevitable.
Right.
You know, so they postponed it a year and they're coming out, both of them are saying, oh, look at us. We really care about New Hampshire.
Well, yeah.
Well, but the end result, okay, so you stab me today or you stab me in a year, it's still going to hurt.
Right. Which reminds me of another thing that just happened, and it's absolutely so frustrating to me because I was a daughter of a veteran. I'm married to a veteran. I have children who are veterans and are active duty members of the military. And while Jean Shaheen was saying to our veterans, I care about you, you're very important. She voted for a bill that would reduce their COLA adjustment, their cost of living adjustment on their retirement pay.
Really?
And the problem is, John, is it would have been fine if they'd said, okay, we're going to do this across the board for all civil servants.
Yeah.
All federal employees will have to take this 1% cut in their cost of living.
And the veterans would be under that.
And the veterans would have been included, but everybody. And why not also Congress? What's wrong with saying the same thing to our senators and our House of Representatives, that when it comes time to making cuts, everybody's got to take a part of this because we're a country in trouble. I mean, $17 trillion is the minimum amount that we're actually in debt, and it's not including everything.
Yeah, what's the real number?
What's the real number? And that's, I think, something that's terribly wrong with what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now. We don't know what the truth is. I mean, we believed well, I don't think we really believed, but we believed the story on Benghazi that it was all about a tape or a videotape and so forth.
Yes.
And now we're finally finding out from some of the testimony that's coming through that it was preventable. They knew it was a terrorist attack. They identified it as a terrorist attack. And yet Mrs. Clinton says, well, what does it matter?
Yes.
We lost 4 American lives on embassy soil, which is American soil at that point.
Yes. Yep.
So, and you know, the ambassador is the equivalent of a 4-star general.
Yeah.
And we didn't go to their aid. We didn't help them out. They were. It wasn't like it was just that night and all of a sudden they got attacked and there were, you know, things were up in an uproar. They had been asking for support for months in advance, and yet we denied it to them. You know.
Well, and they're also saying that, you know, we couldn't have got them help quick enough. But then I'm hearing on the other side, there was, you know, the helicopters and the other teams within an hour away.
Right.
If they were deployed. But,
well,
you know, our president, I don't even think he answered his phone. I think he went to bed. And I'm going.
Well, nobody really knows what he was doing, and yet, how can we really, at this point, it's sort of like when you're raising your children and Johnny comes in and said, no, Mommy, I didn't do this. I swear I didn't I didn't throw that baseball through that woman's window. I don't know where it came from, but it wasn't me. And so the next time Johnny shows up and says, Mom, honest, I didn't take the skates, you kind of say, well, wait a minute. The last time we had this situation, you lied to us, right?
Yeah.
So it gets a little harder to trust Johnny when he
Yes.
comes back the very next time and says, I didn't do it. The same thing is true with our president, who has lied to us about, if you want your health care, you can keep it. If you, if you like your doctor, you can keep him. And we're finding out that he lied to us about that. So when he comes and says, this is what I was doing the night of Benghazi, are we going to be able to take him at his word?
Yeah, yeah.
And, I have to say that that's a real question. And when his Secretary of State, who the other side wants to run for president at
Yes.
this point, that's terribly frightening, because what difference does it make? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have something that's very, very important to me, and you're going to tell me what difference does it make?
And that's what I don't understand. I would think just with that line, it would destroy any chance that she has. But there are so many that just put the blinders on.
She's a woman, and I want a woman to be president.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, it's her health care too, as well as Jane Shaheen's health care.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
It's really, it's kind of frightening where they are right now. And so that's why the 2014 election is so very, very important.
It is. Yeah.
We are really making a decision about what role do we want government to play in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's, it almost goes right into the next question is, we hear a lot of talk about limited government. What does that mean to you, limited government?
It means that, we have this document. In fact, we have some really terrific documents
Yes, yeah.
that have been the founding underlying principle of our country. It started with the Declaration of Independence that makes America so unique and makes us the extraordinarily, I don't know how you totally describe us, but we are an exceptional nation.
Yep, we are.
And the main reason we're exceptional, the main reason that we have our freedoms, is because we believe that all men are created equal, and women, not excluding women, but all of us are created equal.
Yes.
We're given the opportunity to pursue our dreams. Now, maybe we fail at that, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We're given the opportunity to make bad choices or good choices, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But we are also given that opportunity to pull up our bootstraps and try it again.
Yes.
And there are many people in the history of our country who failed the first time, came back, and failed the next time and came back, and failed the next time and came back, and then were successful at some point along the line.
Yeah.
So that is what it makes us so special, and the fact that we know that the reason that we have these inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is because of our Creator. It's not coming from any man, it's coming from God above.
That's right.
And so when we realize that, we also understand that it's not up to me to tell you how to live your life. Yes, there are some basic rules that need to be laid down. It's like playing, I say it's like playing Monopoly. So if you have, my kids did this when they were first learning how to play chess or Monopoly. I can't remember which one it was, but they'd sit down and they'd say, okay, here are the rules. And then something would happen, then somebody would say, oh, well, we just changed that rule, you can't do that. No. But if you really sit down and study the rules of the road for the United States of America,
Yes.
It's embodied in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And they give us certain abilities to do things. And you can pretty well generalize them into 3 different categories, and that is to provide for our national security, make sure that our borders are secure, and our national defense, to make sure that when we're conducting business across state lines that we're doing it fairly, that somebody isn't trying to bilk somebody out of it or take an unfair advantage, and to provide us with an infrastructure of roads and communications so that people are playing by fair rules, and that we're able to do it. Everybody's has access to it. So by limited, I mean that we stick to those primary enumerated powers. And it says in the 10th Amendment that if it's not stated in that document that you can do it,
Yes.
then everything else is left up to our states and to the people. So really there's a lot that Washington is doing right now, which is why our budget is so out of whack, that are not listed in that set of rules, our rule book, so to speak,
Yes.
of the Constitution, that we are doing that we shouldn't be doing. And so that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, not the expanded role, but the one that we were told that we should do. And if we're governing by those principles, then people are free to do so many more things than we're doing right now.
Oh, absolutely. No, I've been reading on Jefferson a lot.
Yeah.
And he just is huge on state rights.
Yeah. And we enacted in this country 40,000 new bills, new laws on January 1st of this year.
Yes.
40,000.
Wow.
My husband said, "Did we mess up that badly?"
Yeah. Yeah. I wished 3/4 of them were repeals.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And if we were putting sunsets on some of the, we do have committees and we do have studies and we do have experiments that we want to try. If we did this different, we make this rule or so forth, would it work?
Yeah.
And then we need to figure out if it's not, if it has just maybe 2 or 3 years to try it, and then if it's not going well, if it shouldn't be refunded, then we shouldn't refund it.
Yes.
But there's basically 3 rules that I would have. Is number 1, is it constitutional? Number 2, is it necessary for us to do? And number 3, do we have the money to be able to pay for it?
Yeah.
And if we applied those 3 rules, then we would be able to control a whole lot more in the way of our budget.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the other thing I think we have to do, if we're going to be a free country, and we could actually take care of our debt today if we would do it, and that is we need to remove all of the subsidies, all of the extra little rules and bennies and all of that, and let energy be energy.
Yes.
Go out, build that pipeline that is the infrastructure for oil or whatever to be come down into the United States.
Oh, the Keystone.
The Keystone is what I'm
Yes.
thinking about.
Yes,
or,
absolutely on that.
Or allow fracking. Now, that is a state right,
Yeah.
whether or not they want to allow it. But look at what it's doing. It uses, I think it's like 3 gallons, I read the other day, 3 gallons of water to get the pipe to go down and to actually do the fracking. And then that's it, and it just
Wow.
flows. And so that would be another way. And then the other thing is to, allow, what is it I say, drill, frack, and, there's another one. But get rid of the subsidies on, allow the free market to work on
Yes.
all the other
Yeah.
kinds of energy. If it's successful, if you have an area that's really, really windy and you don't mind those windmills, then, by all means, if it's producing the kind of electricity you need, then the free market ought to put it out there, and they would succeed
That's right.
if it's going to work.
Yeah.
If it's not, it'll be like a lot of them over in Germany where they're laying down on the side of the road, and you got to figure out, okay, what am I going to do with this monstrosity of a pile and so
Yeah.
forth like that. But that would give us, we produce just out of one of our oil reserves right now, enough oil to compete with the amount of oil that is coming out of Saudi Arabia.
Wow. Well, I heard we're bringing in about 40% of oil.
Well, they just had another thing go up in Texas. I mean, I was listening to this guy who was talking about, I started out, I had this land, and then all of a sudden they found a little bit of oil in it, and man, they're just raking in the money. And I don't mind if they go out there and do all that fracking or whatever it is,
Yeah.
So.
Oh, so they just hit another gold mine down there then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And look at North Dakota, where they've got a lot of jobs up there
Oh,
because of
yeah.
energy.
Yep.
And we could start employing a lot more people and
Yeah.
get our people off of welfare and give them a paycheck.
Yeah. Well, I got some friends down in Texas that's in oil,
Yeah.
and I've asked him. I said, could I drill out behind my house? And he goes, just New England just doesn't have it, I guess.
No,
Unfortunately,
no,
it's like darn.
unfortunately. Yeah, yeah. We
'Cause
have to pipe even our natural gas in. So,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Well, on the those are the pros that we should be doing. How or where is government failing us?
Oh, in a lot of different areas. I mean, we look at the EPA, for example,
Yes, yeah.
and they give us a lot of rules and regulations that control what we do.
Now, I think at beginning with the EPA, and not to interrupt you, Karen,
No.
but Nixon. Everybody says, "Well, Nixon did it." Well, that's true, but I lived up in northern Vermont, and they said you could tell what color paper they were making in the paper mills by what color the river was.
Right, right.
You know what? The EPA was needed.
Well, yes.
But not to, but today the abuses they have.
Right.
So,
right.
I'm sorry to jump
No,
in.
no,
but
you're right. I mean, our rivers are clean today.
They are.
But it's also because a lot of those manufacturing businesses went out of business.
Well, that's true.
And why did they go out of business? I'm not sure. But the other part of that is, though, they were also supposed to make us energy independent.
Yeah.
And where are we? Are we energy independent today? And how long have they been around? And when the shutdown, quote shutdown, happened in Washington, how many employees did they have? I think it was 16, something like that. That's what I heard. So it goes back down to, if that's all they need, then maybe we reduce them at least to that size, and then start making a decision. Are they really a part of these enumerated powers we talked about before?
Yes. Yeah.
Or what about the Department of Education? The federal Department of Education came into being in the late 1970s. They were supposed to take us and make us more competitive in math and science internationally. And we were up in the top 5 at that, or top 10, I think it was, at that time.
Where are we now? 17, 18?
Yeah.
I mean, we're terrible.
Right. And we get these mandates. Come on, if you want race to the top money, we'll dangle this carrot in front of you, and maybe you'll get race to the top money, but you have to sign on to Common Core first.
Oh, yeah.
So now we've signed on to Common Core, and we didn't get the race to the top money, and so now we're sitting there saying, wait, they're being extremely intrusive with Common Core, and we don't want our children's all of these 400 different points of information on our children to be just going to anybody. If you've got it, I mean, it was one thing if mom and dad said, okay, I know that you're collecting this on my child and this is where it's going. But it's an entirely different thing to find out you're collecting how much information on my child and where is it going? Yeah.
And they aren't answering that.
And they're not answering, that's right,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
And well, for the few viewers that probably haven't heard of this, the data they're collecting is, what aspirin your kids take. I mean, it's right down to everything.
it's right. And you want to know something,
the
John?
behavior of the day.
I was just blown away because I was talking to this person the other day who was trying to refinance their house, and they said, because of Dodd-Frank, you would not believe the questions they wanted me to answer. How many newspapers do I receive in my home?
What do they care?
To refinance your house or to buy a house to apply for a mortgage? Why is it any of their business?
Wow.
So it's permeated a lot of different places, and it's like the NSA finding out, is Snowden a friend or a foe? I'm not sure, but the reality is he revealed something, and he was in a position to collect all of this data for a long time because he collected a whole lot of data.
Yes.
So, and why is our government collecting it on all of us? Isn't that a violation of the Fourth Amendment that protects us against unreasonable search and seizure?
Absolutely it is. But yet there's some in Washington that just look the other way. I think Gene Shaheen and the rest of them. Shea Porter. I think they just, oh yeah, nothing wrong here. How can they do that when it's against their, the New Hampshire citizen that they represent?
Well, this is a question that we need to also think about too. Is Gene Shaheen was one of 7 senators who sent the letter to the IRS encouraging them to look more carefully at the 501c4s and the 501c3s, the nonprofit organizations.
Yes.
Okay. Now, it could have been that they really were concerned about why they felt that these organizations weren't being scrutinized very much. But then you find out who the organizations are that are being targeted, and you kind of wonder, was this to give that organization cover? I mean, the IRS himself cover for investigating these people, or was it a real sincere reason to investigate them? I don't know.
Yes.
But it makes me very nervous when this particular branch of the government can intimidate everyone the way they do. I mean, I know when I get that letter or that envelope that says Internal Revenue Service on it, I don't care whether the inside contents say, I think we made a mistake, or we're looking at something that we want to know a little bit more, or we're here to audit you. It doesn't matter what the contents say. Just receiving that envelope, a chill goes up your spine and you say, wonder what happened now.
Yeah.
Why should any agency of the government have that much control over people?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I really think that we need to take a good, hard, long look at this agency that is collecting all of this money to help our government run, and they do have a purpose. But could we do that in a much more efficient way so that everybody pays and nobody has loopholes to go through, to escape through?
Yes.
So I think we should really seriously look at scrapping the IRS as we know it today and replacing it with a flat tax or a fair tax, or tax where we tax. It's just 10% of everything you buy except for maybe food and clothing. That now gets into this deduction problem, which is where we start down, well, what about my house? And then what about my car for my business and stuff like that? So maybe it's better if we just, everything gets taxed, period, for 10%, or we have a flat tax and everybody pays 17% or whatever it is out of your income. And there are no deductions and there are no special, special categories.
Yes.
And everybody pays, and if you are on the lower end of the economic scale, maybe only put in $1. But if you have to put in that $1, you now have skin in the game, and you care about what happens. And I'll bet you our attendance at the polls would go way, way up.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I wish they would do, Karen, is tax us once a year, the IRS, the government. Because right now they just nickel and dime you every week, and people make let's say they make $500, but they only bring home $370.
Right.
And they said, well, no, I make $370. No, you make $500. I'd like to give them that $500 all year, and then at the end of the year have the IRS show up and say, could we have $4,000 or whatever the number is?
Yeah.
People would be at the polls screaming.
Right.
Yeah.
Or as has happened here, when you get your tax bill at the end of the year, or at the biennium tax bill.
Yeah, the property,
Right, and not biennium, but biannual. You look at it, and if in some towns you looked at it, and it was all property tax and the school tax were all together. Now some towns and cities have said, no, we're separating that. So you see
Yeah.
how much goes into education, how much goes into the property taxes. And it gives you more of an idea about what's going on.
Yeah,
It's-
Goffstown separates it. I like that.
Yeah,
You know, and our
And-
county tax is separated.
right. But I think the more transparency we have, the better off we are, and the fairer it is for everybody, and not just, well, you know, you fall into this category. That's how come people have this perception that the rich man is getting away with everything, because he employs an auditor or a tax person
Yeah.
whose business it is to make sure that he pays the minimal amount of tax that he can.
Yep.
So there are all of these little loopholes.
Oh, yeah, there is. There's a bunch
There's
of
a
them.
bunch of them.
Yeah.
And if you can qualify for one of those loopholes, are you going to say, no, I'd rather make sure that my government has extra money? No.
Yeah.
You're going to take advantage of that loophole.
Yeah.
And the other thing we have to do, too, is we have to make it more to the advantage of our big businesses to keep their money here in America.
Yes.
And to keep their jobs here in America,
Yeah.
instead of penalizing them for bringing if they've invested overseas and they want to bring their profits back to the United States. Many of them find that it is more to their advantage to just employ people overseas or take advantage of certain other things when they might actually bring that money home
Yeah.
if it wasn't penalized so heavily.
Yep.
So
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and that's the way New Hampshire. I mean, you know, we're pretty heavy business taxed,
yeah.
and I think we need
And
to
our
address
energy,
that.
our energy in this state is high. I
Yes,
mean,
it is.
New England, the cost of energy in New England is the highest in the nation.
Yeah.
And New Hampshire is right behind Connecticut, which is the most expensive place for energy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm from Vermont, and when I was living over there, there's Green Mountain Furniture, you know, which is pretty famous. I mean,
Uh-huh.
they
Yeah.
got, you know, or Ethan Allen. I'm sorry,
Ethan
Ethan
Allen,
Allen
right.
Furniture. I don't know
Yeah.
why I said Green Mountain.
Because it's Green Mountains
Yes.
in Vermont. Yeah.
So it just popped in my head.
And I'm just going to let you.
Yeah, but they had 5 or 6 plants, and I think they're down to 2 now.
Mm-hmm.
And the CEO of the Vermont plant said, look, you're not competing with China on the energy cost.
Right.
In taxes, because they're extremely heavily taxed. He says, you're competing with North Carolina and South Carolina. You know, we're to the point where we can build a brand new facility in those states, which a lot of companies are doing, and they're leaving the New England area.
Well, there's another reason that they're going to North Carolina, too.
What's that?
Well, Washington, Boeing out in Washington State.
Yes.
Wouldn't listen and wouldn't become a right-to-work state. And
Yeah,
so
that's true too.
they said, okay, then we're building our new Dreamliner. I think it was in North Carolina.
It
we're
is,
setting
yep.
it up right down
Yep.
there. And Ruger did the same thing.
Yes.
Said because we are not a right-to-work state,
Yep.
they took their business elsewhere.
Yeah.
Well, we need people in all levels of government to realize that these are penalties to our businesses, and
Yes.
it's not government that grows jobs, it's that small business person, and that's why New Hampshire does so well, is we have so many small businesses. But if we could have more, and we could have even some bigger businesses, if we would make the business climate here in this state more friendly to our businesses.
Yes, absolutely, and get our energy cost under control.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
well,
huge.
that's part of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And well, Karen, I'm also curious, what do you feel is the most important issue facing New Hampshire citizens in, really the nation?
Right now, it's the loss of our liberties. I mean, we've got to
Yeah,
figure
I
out
would
how do
agree.
we make sure that we're not losing our liberties. And Second Amendment is way up at the top of that, because we keep hearing about they want us to register our guns. And, we want to have a national registry. Well, we already have a national registry.
Yeah.
Because every gun owner's store has to keep all of those registrations. They don't go away because the time limit passed. Every time they sell a gun, it's registered, and they have to keep that. So there technically is already a national registration. So we don't need that, because when the government knows where the guns are and they can start confiscating them. Go back to World War II and see what happened.
Yeah.
Go to many of the other communist, Stalin, all of these different dictators. And when they wanted to come get the guns, they went after the ones that were registered.
Yep.
So we have to be very, very cautious about allowing that. The other thing I think we have to watch for is we've got, I think it was something like either 1,700 or 170,000 veterans who have, because of the experiences that they had when they were overseas, met with a counselor and to deal with some of their experiences,
Yes,
to
yes.
help them through it, and then are now denied their ability to keep and bear arms because they were on that role.
Well, that's what Senate Bill 244 is in front of us right now.
Exactly.
That's
And
exactly. Al Baldessaro spoke against it and said they're veterans.
Yeah, and so what we're talking about doing in that bill is now turning over to the government the right to regulate who is classified as mentally dangerous.
Yes.
And we're going back to Sandy Hook and all of these different mass shootings that went on. But are we also not looking at what kinds of drugs we're putting these people on? I mean, there's a very high correlation between those people who have resorted to this action and the kinds of drugs that they were either on or coming off of.
Yes.
There's a very high correlation there, and we need to look at that rather than just everybody who has a problem now needs to register, and the government's going to say whether or not that person qualifies. Do you meet this, checkbox type thing?
Yes. Well, I know in Australia, England is totally disarmed other than the criminals. They still have their guns.
Yeah.
But in Australia, they just disarmed everybody. It's been a couple of years now. But it went from 1 year of registration of all firearms to the government. The following year, that was the end. They started confiscating guns and saying, look, we need to for safety. And now, the crime rate's up, home invasions are up 60%, they said 65%. And I mean,
That's right.
They're angry down there, and I feel bad for them. How do you ever get it back? I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, that's why we have to be vigilant.
Yes.
Our founding fathers said that if we wanted to keep our liberties, we had to be vigilant.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that, I've just finally got past this battle and it's all over. No, the other side is going to come up with a reason why we need to make sure that you don't have that right any longer. Yeah.
Well, I keep my home secure, but that was our next question is how do you, how would we secure our nation? Because we are, vulnerable.
We are vulnerable, and we have to do it smartly.
Yes.
One of the things that I think we need to do is we need to train our people, and we need to be taking their time in their training to be doing training and not political correct, making sure that we're treating each other politically correctly.
Yes.
Because we spend so much time on that. Meanwhile, this young man or woman is supposed to be learning how to fly this plane. That's one thing. The other thing is, in our Constitution, it says that if we go to a foreign land to engage in any sort of conflict, that it's up to Congress to declare that as a conflict that we're going to get involved in.
That is true. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And how many of these conflicts have we been involved in since World War II that was ever authorized by Congress?
I almost don't think any of them have. Have they? I know Afghanistan hasn't been.
No.
Huh?
It's really interesting. So we really need to abide by our rule book.
Yeah.
We are a nation of laws, and we ought to abide by it. Another thing is that, our national security is really our best are one of the enumerated powers. And so to secure our national security, the very, very best thing we can do is secure our borders.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
We have to secure our borders. We have to have, when I was growing up, if you wanted to immigrate to this country, it was before the family connection thing came into being. But if you wanted to come to America, you had to have a sponsor. You had to have a job. You had to be healthy. You had to be a good, upstanding type citizen. You couldn't be corrupt in any way. And if you met that criteria, and if we didn't have too many people coming into the country at that time, then you could get a green card and come to this country.
Yep.
And then after a certain period of time, you could apply for citizenship. And if you passed the test, then you became a naturalized citizen. And there's nothing wrong with that process. It worked for hundreds of years.
Yes.
Until I think it was under Kennedy, one of the Kennedys, that we started saying, well, you know, the family relationship is more important. So now we have anchor babies.
Yes.
Which is a problem.
Yep.
And we can't go at this like, you know, there are a lot of people who are here, who came here illegally, and if we reward them for coming here illegally and say, oh, well, we'll just sign off the amnesty like Reagan did.
Yes, yeah.
We're not solving the problem.
Yeah, no, we're not.
We've got to enforce the laws, enforce the practices that we know worked at one time. You know, Australia doesn't take just anybody. They said, if you don't like our country, then leave, or if you're not an upstanding citizen, then we ask you to leave. I mean, you know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And for heaven's sakes, I know about immigration and what it takes. My grandfather came in the late 1800s.
Wow.
Yeah, but it wasn't until sometime in the 1950s that he was allowed to apply for and gain citizenship.
Yeah.
So over 50 years, he stayed in this country. He knew what it was all about. He abided by the laws. He brought his children up to love this country, to stand up. And, oh, by the way, we were united we stand. We were not hyphenated America at that point.
Yes, yeah.
We were the big melting pot. Remember that? That terminology. We stood united. We were Americans. We were proud to be Americans. We weren't trying to segregate ourselves in any way. And that's not to say that segregation wasn't happening. It happened in the church.
Yes.
You had your Polish Catholic church over here and your Japanese American church over here, and you know, and we gravitate towards people that we're like, and that's just human nature to a certain extent. And you know, I remember growing up, there were all kinds of racial jokes going around, but everybody was a friend. You could tell an Italian joke, or you could tell a Mexican joke, and everybody just laughed about it, and then we all knew we were friends. And you can't do that today.
No, not anymore.
You're called a racist, and we're divided in so many different ways. We really have to unite.
Yes,
come back. We've got a big problem in front of our country right now, and that's, what are we going to say the role of government is?
Absolutely.
And we have to come together and have an honest discussion about it, and then, you know, come to a conclusion. Which way are we going to go? What's going to produce the best thing? And Americans are innovative. I mean, look at all of the things that we've created in this country and invented, and you know, it's amazing. And a lot of them were people who maybe didn't finish high school or 8th grade, but they had this work ethic, and they had this, you know, they knew that if they worked hard and they continued to persevere, that they could succeed.
Oh, absolutely.
And they could have their dream.
Yes, yeah. Well, we're at the end, and you know, I'll give you a minute if you want to just talk to the viewers and say why you should be the next U.S. Senator.
Well, thank you so much, John,
and
for having me.
Well, I didn't get through all of my questions, so I want you back.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I'd love to come back again. But, you know, this is a very, very important election, and we are going to make a decision about whether or not we want big government that has been proposed by the current administration, which includes Jeanne Shaheen and Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi. Do we want them to continue to govern our country, or do we want to have something fresh and new in our country? And going back to those founding principles that worked so very, very well for us and allowed us to be free people. It is about we the people. Are we going to govern by principle, or are we going to govern by ruling class and power? And so I welcome you to go to my website. It's testermanforsenate.com, and look at what's there. Check out the issues, see where I stand on the various things, and then get engaged and join the team and see how you can help us out. I'd love to have your vote. I'd like to have your support, and if you can spare that financial part of the picture too. It takes money to run a campaign, and so I would really appreciate your help there too. My name is Karen Testerman, and the website again is testermanforsenate.com.
All right, well, thank you, Karen. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you very much.
And I'm sure the viewers, if they got 20, 30 people in a house, and you would go and visit them.
Absolutely. I really want to, in fact, I'd like to even rent a town hall for a while and go sit down in the town hall and have people just come and ask questions, because I really want you to know who I am and where I stand on the various issues.
Well, great. No, I thank you very much for coming on, and I definitely want you back.
Okay, thank you so much, John.
All right, and this is New Hampshire Politics with John Burt. We had Karen Testerman, and she's running for U.S. Senator. And you know, really look at her website. You'll find a lot of good information there, and Karen's a great person. And until next time, I want to thank you for watching. Have a good day now.